And now, moving on, we have a fireside chat on the game of subscriptions. And to moderate this chat about the future of business models, please welcome back Sanjay Swamy. Joining Sanjay, we have the senior entrepreneur, Wilhelm Hedberg, who founded ekar, the Middle East's first and largest self-drive mobility platform. Well, guys, I was really excited to know about this, and I think it was a great initiative and something really unique that came out. And providing users on-demand access to a network of thousands of vehicles via its mobile app. ekar was featured in Forbes Middle East's 50 most funded startups in 2020 and 2022, awarded GCC Car Sharing Providers Company at the year in 2019 by Frost & Sullivan, and placed in the top 5 startups in 2018 by Forbes Middle East. With over 10 years of experience in quality management and logistics, his first role was at Wilhelm Lines, overseeing the shipment of over 1 million automobiles throughout the Middle East. In 2009, he co-founded and later successfully exited QMS Global FZ LLC, an ISO certification company. He was also crowned SME Leader for the year 2018 by Arabian Business. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Wilhelm, and over to you, Sanjay.
Thank you, Will. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Please. So we're here to talk about the game of subscriptions. And my team thought of adding the Game of Thrones element to this, if you haven't noticed it yet.
Yeah, it's great.
Subscriptions have been a part of our lives for as long as we can remember. I think at the most basic point is where our newspapers that used to come to us monthly were subscriptions, right? But now, as we're moving and evolving, as the region's evolving, as the environment is evolving, a lot of brands are now focusing more on building subscription-based models, right? And these businesses, it's not very easy to build subscription-based models. I've been a huge fan of ekar. When I moved to UAE a couple of years ago, I think that was my first, that was my ride-hailing app for me. And just to get this panel moving, I just want to try and understand what are the key elements of a subscription-based business. Is it for everyone? If it is for everyone, what are they looking at?
Yes, and thank you so much for having me here. I can touch on subscription all day, to be honest. So just to give some context, when I launched ekar, this is in 2016, I actually named the company EKAR, EK for the call sign for Emirates Airlines. The idea was to give cabin crew cars. They live in accommodation towers. They can't necessarily afford a car. So let's have cars parked in the basement that they can use the app to unlock, pay per minute. And when I launched in 2016, actually at Etihad Airways, at their accommodation towers, I decided to start ekar as a subscription model. So we had a 100 dirham charge to be a monthly member. And then you can also, on top of that, then book a vehicle directly on the app, pay per minute. And what I realized was that was a huge mistake, right? I launched a company and had created a paywall, which obviously was a huge hurdle for people who had never even heard of ekar, didn't understand what car share was to begin with. Now, sort of fast forward 7 years, we're operational across UAE, across Saudi Arabia. We have around 4,000 cars in a super app that we have now, car sharing without a subscription. We have subscription rentals, which is long-term, which is derived from COVID. So we realized how important it was to have that revenue stream coming in and provide customers with additional options. And then thirdly, we now have launched peer-to-peer in Saudi Arabia. So individuals can actually rent their own car out, like Airbnb. So we've learned in the game of subscriptions, you can mess it up. Like, it's not that simple. But once you have a great product market fit, once the consumers understand what your product is, then you can take advantage and leverage that type of system.
And what are the most competitive challenges that you see while adopting a subscription-based model?
So I think there's really two. So one would be understanding your bundle So if you're trying to create a subscription service, you have to figure out, okay, is there a product market fit, and how do we get that bundle out at the correct price point where customers will feel comfortable paying this on a recurring basis? And secondly, in the world in our world of vehicles, what we recognize is the fact that what we're effectively doing is we're becoming the sort of Netflix for cars. We're saying, look, don't buy a car. That's that big upfront purchase of a depreciating asset. Rather pay a fixed monthly amount, a car will get door delivered, and then you can upgrade or downgrade as you see fit. You change your car like you change your clothes. Well, hopefully more than once a month, but you get my point. But yeah, but part of that problem set is that once we take on the responsibility of kind of maintaining and managing the asset, then you have the maintenance and these kinds of other elements you have to take into account. Like if we were to just sold a car, you sell it and forget about it. But now, because they kind of are still within our ecosystem, we have to worry about the maintenance and these kinds of things moving forward. So the business model itself is going to change fundamentally.
Right. You mentioned Netflix, right? And it's been a very interesting year for Netflix because this is the first time we've seen the subscriptions go down, right? What are some tactical ways, where you see brands can reduce churn, increase retention? How do you see that happening?
So as mentioned by the other speakers, the data is like the number one thing, right? So at ekar, we're pulling about 2 million data records every day. We have a hardware unit in our vehicles, which gives 16 readings, latitude, longitude, even how hard somebody presses on the accelerometer. That then correlated with the driver's license, age, name, sex, nationality, that kind of thing. And then all that data then flushes through, and then we can utilize that data to uncover and understand our user demographics. And that has allowed us to make this kind of happen. I'm speaking to a bunch of amazing marketers here, so I'm probably not saying anything that you don't know. But if there's one takeaway when it comes to uncovering that element of marketing in a digital world, it's understanding LTV to CAC. That's it. So if you have an understanding of lifetime value divided by the cost of customer acquisition, and you understand fundamentally those two elements, and here the key number is 3, meaning for every dollar you spend, you should get $3 of value back. If you hit that 3 number, then you're doing exceptionally well. If you're above 3, you're probably not spending enough on marketing. If you're below 3, then you probably don't have the right product market fit, and you got to start re-examining what you're doing. But that number of 3 is the magic number.
Right, and what advice would you give marketers, to build a robust data and analytics team?
So, it depends on where you are in the company lifecycle. Like we have companies like, Tim Hortons up here and major airlines speaking. So that's a different type of balance sheet, different type of world. And if I were to be speaking to founders, which I do often, I would say, look, it's probably best to start off with working with third-party marketing companies to begin with a very strong focus on performance marketing. So have the experts kind of work this. Once you flesh out the system, you understand your user base, maybe after the first year or so, then you could consider bringing on board a robust team. You're going to want to have, we were very lucky. We have a very strong head of data that joined us, who built the team, and a very strong head of tech as well. So you want to find those diamonds in the rough. One of the additional kind of anecdotes that I like to mention as well for the startup ecosystem is that there's something called ESOP, which is employee stock option plans. So an interesting thing that most people don't know in this region, unlike in the US, where you actually have to find the value of your company today, and if you bring a CMO on, let's say, that CMO would get a stock option plan, but on the value of the current valuation of the company, because of tax reasons. Now, because there's not that type of tax system in the Gulf, you can actually provide somebody with nominal value on stocks joining companies. So if you think about it, basically you can go to Google or whomever, like the biggest companies in the world, and say, look, we want to steal your chief marketing officer, because day one you could give him, let's say, $1 million worth of shares in principle, because they were able to get the share price at 1 cent rather than, I don't know, $15 or whatever per share because of this little hack. So you're welcome to all the startup founders out there.
Right. Also, this is an open panel, so if there are any questions, I'll be open to taking that from the audience. But before I open the floor, I want to get back to the next question. How do you see this space evolving in the next 5 years?
So subscription businesses are going to hit 1.5 trillion US dollars in the next 2 years. And it's going to, again, double again in 4 years from then. So this is a huge market, e-commerce being the one that's dominating. But we're seeing this all over. So Netflix is the biggest one in e-commerce and that sort of space. But in the automotive space, like 2 months ago, BMW announced that they're going to be charging in-car charging for heated seats, right? So this is something that's coming standard in the car. But if you want to unlock that value, then you can pay a subscription for it. You have companies like General Motors that have OnStar, for example, which is their own digital version of, like if you lose your keys, for example, they can unlock the car. If there's an accident or incident, it will directly notify, the police and the ambulance to come and so on. These new types of subscription models are popping up all over the place, and companies are trying to figure out how to monetize that. We're looking at it in a way that, okay, so General Motors, for example, would be charging 180 real per car per month to have this OnStar program. They're making it freemium, which I think is interesting, meaning the first 3 months you'll get it for free, and then after then you can pay that recurring thing. But it's an interesting cat and mouse kind of game, because are people that have bought $100,000 car, are they really, like, it's just annoying nearly to pay $100 a month for some additional service. So I think the market's still trying to sort of figure it out. There's a ton of opportunity though, but again, it boils down to product market fit, and it boils down to like really understanding what your pricing is going to be and what your bundle is going to be to make sure this thing actually will work and succeed moving forward.
Do we have any questions for Willem from the... Yeah. Excuse me. Can I get a mic? Yeah.
Hello, hi. My name is Chris Kowarski. I'm CMO at Yap, a digital bank from Dubai. You really touched me with what you said about the LTV to CAC. It's very close to my heart and to my mind, both of them. I think I also believe this is the key. And if you could share a little bit more, like insights or some thoughts about this, what was important, like your findings or some anything you can share, yes? Because I think this is critical to every marketeer.
Thank you, and I'm glad you appreciate that as much as I do. Any investor will ask you this now. They're very, very familiar with LTV CAC ratios. You won't be able to figure out your LTV unless you understand your own data, if you understand your customer base. And it also allows you, by delving into the data and looking at the customer base, you might actually find out that there's some customers that you don't even maybe want. It's an 80-20 rule, like maybe 20% of the customers are costing you more money than they should be. So understanding LTV is going to be key. LTVs are going to get extended with subscriptions. That's a key piece to this. Now again, creating that payment gateway, that blocker, could be potentially catastrophic to the business. So you have to really understand that product market fit. When it comes to cost of customer acquisition, that's full performance marketing stuff, right? Now, I'm not smart enough to know all the ins and outs of that. We have a team that are ridiculously good at this stuff, but yet they will come up with a number that explains, okay, this is how much it costs to bring this type of customer through. And yeah, we live and breathe. Like every week we have weekly meeting, and our LTV CAC ratio is like front and center. It's one of our key KPIs that we have. Without that, I think we'd be in trouble. We're probably spending a lot of money needlessly.
Do we have another question? Yeah, please.
Hi, good morning. I'm from Key Car Rental. basically. I just wanted to ask you how different you find compared to UAE and Saudi Arabia for your particular business, because I'm into the same business, I should say. So how do you find it different as a Saudi market?
Well, first of all, UAE, only 15% of the population are Emirati, right? The rest are expats from all over. Saudi Arabia, as we heard earlier as well, the majority of the market are young Saudis below the age of 30, okay? But the key difference, and what we found to be so exciting, was 2-3 years ago, women were allowed the permission to drive vehicles. They were to get a driver's license, and ekar is a first car solution for women. And actually, our percentage of female drivers is significantly higher in Saudi than it is in the UAE, which is interesting. What we've understood from some of the feedback is that, whereas before maybe a Saudi female would be sort of driven to work or to school or what have you or wherever with the family car and the family driver, ekar, however, now permitting somebody to self-drive, has actually also, in theory, impacted the relationships that people are having as young people, just moving around and being able to, go out and have fun or whatever. So it's interesting. It's nearly as though there's a cultural shift that's happening within this space. I highly recommend, looking at Saudi as a market opportunity, and especially whatever marketing you're doing, remember the fact that half of the population just got the ability to drive a car 3 years ago. And the numbers of licenses being issued are kind of doubling every couple months. So hopefully that was insightful.
Do we have any more questions? All right, then, Mohan, thank you so much for being a part of this chat. I think there was a lot to take away from this conversation. I have one last question before we leave. How many iterations did it take you before you got your subscription model in place? And how did you win back the customers that you lost?
So so our original subscription was just to be an ekar car share user, and we never went back to that.
Right.
So the subscription we have now is just for vehicles. But keep your eye out, because in the next next 6 months, we're going to be launching out ekar Connect, which is in-car, in-dash ability for you to get automated cleaning, fueling, with CAFU. All our cars get CAFU fueled. Driver scoring. So imagine somebody, the gentleman earlier from Tim Hortons, imagine having great driver scoring and then you get free coffee, for example, or discounted airline tickets and so on. But also the ability to click a button and then activate your vehicle like Airbnb and rent it out whenever you want to. And I think for this, we might consider making that also a subscription-based model.
That's very interesting, and good luck to you, and I hope that it works out really well for you. Thank you so much for being a part of this event.
Thank you.